Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 18 of Omnifactory. Last episode, if you remember, we set up our automatic dispenser for all the bountiful items. Well, I guess just for reference, today is, at least as of the time of this recording, is the 4th of July. So in addition to being American Independence Day, it is the release date of Season 3 of Stranger Things. So I've actually been watching that all day, it's been wonderful. But between episodes, what I've actually been doing is I'll just grab all the bounties and turn them in, keeping my inventory stocked with supplies from there. And I've built up about 100,000 Omni coins in the time, so over 4, 5, 6, 10 hours. I don't know. It's been a while, but just by sporadically turning in bounties, I have 100,000 Omni coins that I'll probably never finish spending. Kind of makes you wonder, right? Who asks for these things? Like, what do they do with them? They're literally useless. It really makes you wonder what's going on out there. Anyways, let's get on to our thing for today. So, today I would like to get into Draconic Evolution. The first step, though, before we can really dive into Draconic Evolution is that we need to set up a robust Empower setup for the actual additions in power. So if I can find it, here it is. The Draconic Core uses 4 Draconium ingots, 4 Tungsten Carbide ingots, that's fine, right? We have blast furnaces processing these automatically, and a Empowered Payless Crystal block. This is made in the Empower, uses, various things, but it takes about somewhere between 30 seconds to a minute to do this. And we use an Empowered Payless block to make the Draconic Core. Then to upgrade the Draconic Core to a Wyvern Core takes an Empowered Emeradic block. Basically, it takes a lot of empowering to really do anything in Draconic Evolution. So I'm thinking, instead of just setting up one Empower to do our empowering, let's go with something like 9, right? We can set up a 3x3 array of them. And much like we do for our alloy smelters, we can use package auto to make sure that the items stay together as a single unit until they reach the Empower. That way we can run, 9 Empowers in parallel without worrying about items getting split up between them. So let me go ahead and gather up some materials, set them up. I'll show you how I want to set up, one of the Empowers, and then I'll do the other 8 off camera because it's the exact same process. Here's our grid of Empowers before wiring them up. Now it's time to hook up power to all of them. And I think I mentioned it before, but these display stands, they'll accept power on every side. So to make them run at optimal speed, you actually have to give them RF on every side, which means it's going to look like a bit of a disaster here. So here we go. Here's this whole thing with the energy conduits hooked up. Next, let's go encode the recipes before we hook up the item conduits. So off to our ME system. And since we want to transfer these items atomically, we have to use packaged auto. And to do so, I encoded these recipes. They are basically just the regular Empower recipe. You can click them in and it says, one of each, the block plus the 4 side components makes the Empowered block. We save it, grab the recipe, put it into our packager, which I've already done. And then when we go into our ME system, there should be 6 of them, I believe. Only 5. Hold on. I must have missed one. Save. That should be 6. Whatever. I'm going to assume the other one's in there and just not showing. So when we come here and search for Empower, we can see that we have the 6 recipe packages. I've already made 5 of them, and then we just have to register recipes for each of these. So for the Empowered Restonia, instead of doing that, we say it takes 1 of this package to make that. And then we do the same for each of the others. So Payless is this one. And I'll come back when I've done the others. And I'm back with all the recipes encoded. So we have 6 different recipes here, one for each of the empowered blocks. I'm going to put them into this interface. So when we request any of these blocks, whether it be on demand or just auto processing, the recipe packages get sent into this small supply crate or small storage crate. From there, we want to round robin item extract and distribute it between all of our unpackagers. So let me grab a bundle of item conduits and set that up. I want to make sure that these item conduits I'm placing now do not cross with the item conduits I'm placing later, so I'll place them on a higher Y level. And this is just a bunch of laying down item conduits, so I will be back in a second. And we're back. With all these item conduits laid down, when we request crafting of these empower blocks, the packages then will get dumped in here and distributed evenly amongst all of our unpackagers, because extraction is round robin and single item at a time. So once we have the item packages distributed into our unpackagers, the unpackagers, which should all be on blocking mode, will put the one set of items at a time into the next crate, and then all we have to do is take items out of the second crate and make sure that the central item goes in the middle and the other 4 items go on the edge. And when this is done, extract the central item from the middle and send it back to our ME interface. So to do so, I've already set up a set of item filters. They're all the same. They are whitelisted for the Actually Editions like Atomic Reconstructor blocks. All these blocks share the same item ID and just differ from metadata. So by ignoring metadata, we get them all with one. Canola seeds, in case we ever want to do that here. And the set of 6 Actually Editions gears that are added that we have to empower later for infinity ingots. So once we have this item filter, we can use that to ensure that the items that have to go into the middle always go in the middle. So let's go red channel and put this here, put the middle one at a higher priority. Then we want to connect that to all the edges. And these can just be on insert, same channel, but regular priority, right? So this is on priority 1. These can be on priority 0. Then we just hook all these up. Let's grab our copy paste gadget and copy these settings all around. Now it's important that we keep each of these conduit networks separate from each other so that the conduits for this empower do not touch the conduits for this empower, and so on and so forth. So that handles insert. Now as for extract, we have to get the items out of this empower and send it into our ME interface. But we want to do it for all of these empowers without them touching, so I'm thinking we might have to go underneath for that. You know what? To make it easier, let's actually just... How many channels do we have free here? Do we have 9 channels free? We do. I'll just set up an import bus onto each of these empowers. So let me go grab the supplies for that. And here's our final product for this one empower setup. We have an import bus sucking out the final product when it's done. And that should be the last step. So just to reiterate, when we request a craft, all the packages will come into this crate where they're distributed evenly among all these unpackagers. Each unpackager will turn the items into their, the 5 individual items. And then we can, I forgot to connect this, we can distribute items from from that onto our empower setup, such that we ensure that the central item goes in the middle by setting a higher priority and filtering it, and then the other 4 items go on the sides. So let me clone this setup for the other 8, and we can give it a test run and see how it does. The settings have been copied to every single set of empowers, and let's give it a test run. It's very likely I, messed up copy pasting somewhere, something along the line, and this won't quite work, but hey, that's what testing is for, right? So it looks pretty intimidating, but if we hide all the conduits, it doesn't look quite so bad. And particles means it's working. I think I have my my particle effects turned all the way down so you don't get to see the lasers. But it looks like this middle set isn't working. What's the matter here? It has all the items. Yeah, so when you see that little explosion, let me turn on particle effects again. And we can maybe see it work better. If I can find it in this. You know what? Optifine gives me way too many options and I have no clue where it is. So let's see if we can diagnose why some of these aren't running. So are these all powered? They are. Are they the right items? Looks like it. What's the matter here? Let me see if I can diagnose it and then I'll let you know what it was. Alright, I figure what was wrong with our middle section here. There's one too many spaces between the Empower and this one display stand. There should be 2 blocks. I accidentally put 3. So I'm just going to move these display stands in by a block. But I notice there's also another problem. And let me see if it's shown itself on any of these yet. Here's one. So on this one, the center block ended up on one of the sides. And I think what happened was that when the previous task completed, the block that was here wasn't pulled out quick enough by the import bus, because import buses take, a little bit of time before they pull the item out. So what happened was, because the insert onto the sides has no filters, it just got put there. So I can either put a filter on each one of these. That's basically the inverse of this one, right? It's this filter except blacklist. Or I can use something that's a bit faster at extracting and then import bus from there. And I think I'll do the latter just because I don't want to set up a bunch of filters. Incidentally, one of the fastest things that extract in Minecraft is the vanilla hopper. Look, I did it again. So let me put this back in this chest. So let's watch it happen as it finishes here. I think what will happen is you'll see it finish, you'll see this item disappear, but the Empower block will stay there for a hot second. Any second now. So anyways, so yeah, there it goes. The new item gets inserted, but it worked that time. I guess it depends on what order this extracts items in as well. But anyways, what I'm saying is there's a race condition between that item conduit extracting and this import bus importing. So if I put a hopper under this Empower, the hopper will pull the item out basically immediately. Hoppers are one of the least delayed item transport systems in Minecraft. So that should fix that, and then I just have to rebuild these to actually be right. So I'll be back when that's done. So on second thought, I decided that I would rather go ahead and put a blacklist filter on each one of these display stands. Thinking about it for a bit, even if I put the hopper there and imported off the hopper, we would still get the problem, where the center item gets put onto one of the side display stands. Sometimes it will be less often, instead of happening 50% of the time, it might happen 1% of the time, maybe even less than that. But you don't resolve race conditions by making them happen less often, right? If, my boss caught me doing this, he'd have some strong words with me. And if I caught any junior developers, doing something like that, then I would have some strong words for them. So in the interest of doing things right, let's do things right. Now, as far as doing things right goes, I moved the center row of display stands one over. I'm not going to tear everything here up and move it one block over just to get rid of this. Because you know what? This is ugly enough as it is. Nobody's going to notice that it's one block off. So let's go ahead and request more empowered blocks. Let's see, we did Palis last time. Let's do Restonia this time. Looks like we can make all this. And I couldn't find how to make the lasers show up, so we don't get lasers. Sucks to be us. But now, as the materials become available, we can see that this Empower is running. And I think it has to craft like nether stars or something. I don't know. There's a bunch of crafting steps going on, and I'm not quite sure what the bottleneck is, but that's the magic of auto crafting. You don't care for the details. And here we go. Now all the empowers are slowly starting to spin up one by one. And with this, we now have a automated, distributed empower setup. Cool, eh? So on to our next step then. We can now make Draconic Cores, but in order to do anything further in Draconic Evolution, we have to use Draconic Evolution's fusion crafting, which if you think about it is pretty similar to this. Let's see. Let's move on to, I guess, the next tier of core. So that'll be Wyvern Core. To make Wyvern Cores, it's done in the Fusion Crafter at basic tier. So let me go get us a Fusion Crafting Core and the Fusion Injectors, and I'll show you how I like to set up my Draconic Evolution Fusion Crafting doohickey. Well, things couldn't be that easy. While looking at the recipe for the basic Fusion Crafting Injectors, they use Europium plates. And the only way to make Europium, I believe, is in a Gregtech Fusion Reactor. Lots of fusion going on. So let me double check that. Europium is made, you can make it from the dust, but there's no way to make the dust. So yeah, the Europium fluid is only made in a fusion reactor with neodymium and hydrogen, and a tier 1 fusion reactor, I believe. So our fusion reactor here is already always in use making our oxygen plasma to make power. So how about we'll grab the components to make a second fusion reactor. I have to complete the quest for it anyways, because I apparently didn't have the parts in my inventory when I unlocked this quest. So, fusion reactor number 2, here we go. And here is our second fusion reactor. Let's call this one our crafting reactor, and that one can be our power reactor. So this one is set up that there's a couple more fluid input buses, and into a few of them I've placed fluid extractors so that we can easily supply them with fuel. So in the case of Europium is made from neodymium and hydrogen. So apparently Europeans are, I don't know, magnetic and explosive. Whatever that means. So let's get some neodymium. We'll grab, I don't know, let's grab 8 stacks of ingots. And I'm already supplying hydrogen via a fluid export bus here. So that's just keeping this hatch filled with hydrogen. If I throw our neodymium into here, this fluid extractor will melt it into the fluid neodymium form, which is put into the reactor, which starts running. Right, it takes a fair bit of power. What is it, like 25,000 EU a tick, so 100k RF a tick. But as it runs, it spits out a little bit of fluid Europium, which I solidify in ingot form, and we have 10 Europium ingots. Would you look at that? With these, we can now make our fusion injectors, I believe. So we can get back into... So we've already made the core. Let's see if we can make these. Not yet. What do we need? Oh, I just need to turn them into plates. So let's go put that recipe in. Oh wow, our compressor has almost 6 full interfaces full of recipes. That's one busy machine. Alright, let's craft 10 of these. So this shouldn't take too long, I expect. I have too many auto crafting tasks running in the background, and unfortunately, it kicks or it changes the ID of the CPU as it runs. So it's pretty hard to actually track the progress of these crafting tasks. But by the looks of it, it is using our Empower setup, and there it goes, one just finished up. We can't really see anything unless we hide all the conduits here. Looks like it's empowering Inori crystals right now. And when this is done, we should have our fusion crafting injectors. It is really cool to watch these pop off. Now there's 2 of them. Where are the others? Alright, it's too hard to track them. Looks like it's doing something in the soul binder. Yeah. I'll be back when it's done. With our fusion injectors in hand, I think we're ready to start setting up the fusion the fusion crafting core. So the number of fusion injectors kind of varies by pack. Generally, you want to make sure that you have enough enough injectors for the recipe with the greatest number of items. So I took a second and scrolled through all of these, and I believe there are a handful that use 10, which is why I have 10 fusion injectors. None of them use 11 or more. So 10 it is. Now the way you set these up is that all the fusion injectors must be I think there must be one air block. Is that one air block? That's 2 air blocks. There must be one air block between the fusion injector and... No, that was 1 air block. Okay, so there must be exactly 1 air block between the fusion injector and the crafting core, and they can differ by... on the y-axis, the vertical axis, by up to a block. And on the horizontal axis is by another block. So instead of trying to explain it, let me just show you. And since we need 10, we need 2 groups of 3 and a group of 4. So if we set it up like this, that one's a 4. Alright, so like that, we can get 10 fusion injectors around our core. And then each one of these must individually be powered. And they will take a ridiculous amount of power, so it's good that we have the superconducting wire to connect to them. They can be configured to either accept only a single item or like a full item stack. For automation purpose, I find it's much easier to set them in single item mode. So go ahead and set all of these into single item mode. And now I'm going to do something a little strange, and I'll explain in a bit what this is for. But I'm going to put a phantom face above our fusion crafting core and link the two. Actually, I need it 1 block higher. And I'll leave that phantom face there until we actually use it, at which point I'll explain what it's for. So for now, you can speculate. It isn't connected to anything. Connect. There we go. We won't need it probably for the remainder of this episode. So yeah, take your time to guess. Now I have a ME interface here. When we request a craft, this should be on blocking mode. It'll put the items into this storage crate. From here, we just have to extract them and put it such that the central item ends up in the center and the other items end up on the side. So let me grab some item conduits. We'll need more than 10 and set that up. I'll be back when it's wired up. Here it is, all wired up, with the exception of the phantom face. I think I'm going to keep that a secret for a little while longer. So let's walk through how it works. When you request an item, for example, the Wyvern Core, what will happen is the items here will get dumped into this storage crate. Now, out of this storage crate, I'm extracting on 2 different sides from 2 different colors. So on this side, I'm extracting from blue, only when there's no redstone signal, and whitelisted for the emeraldic crystal. That is the item from here that goes in the middle slot. On this one, it's basically the same thing, except if I can click it, let me just do this. So it's extract on brown, same condition when there's no redstone signal, and it's blacklisted for the same items. And those go to the sides, right? That's how I ensure that the emeraldic crystal, the item in the middle, goes in the middle, and the item that goes on the sides goes, well, on the sides. Cool. So that's the basic gist of it. When the items are done, they're extracted from here on the purple channel and put back into the interface. The Fusion Crafting Core, when it receives a redstone signal, will attempt to start any valid recipe. If there isn't a valid recipe, it just ignores it. So what I do is I just give it a pulsing redstone signal every second. I have a redstone clock hidden down here connected to it via redstone conduit. So that will just start it up as soon as there's a valid recipe. And lastly, the Fusion Crafting Core, while it's crafting, emits a comparator signal proportional to how complete the crafting is. And all I care about, honestly, is whether or not it's doing any crafting at all. If it is crafting, it'll emit a comparator signal of at least 1, which is enough to turn on this conduit on red. And that conduit goes to our item conduits, and it turns off our item conduits while it's crafting. That way, while it's crafting, it won't, our item conduits won't try to jam additional items into here. So let's test it out. Now I'll start by I already crafted a Wyvern Core to see if it works, but I'll craft another single one, and then we can see it start up. And you see here, it only uses 8 of the 10 fusion crafters. These last 2 are blank. And even if I put more items in here, it won't try to suck them in because this is emitting a redstone signal right now. That way, because if I were to put another item here, say manually, the system's like, hey, you can't do that. So I have to, make sure not to do that. Right, and this interface is on blocking mode, so it only puts 1 set of items in at a time. But if I were to order 2 sets of Wyvern Cores, then the second one would, the second set of items would sit in here while we craft the first set. So the fusion crafting has pretty cool animation. We can just let this one finish. And then I'll order 2, I guess, just to demonstrate that. You know what? I'll order 2, and I'll turn this into always active instead of the active without signal that we had it on. Right, so this will fail because after it starts crafting the first one, you see that it immediately put the supplies for the second one in, and that caused it to stop the craft. So to fix it, let me manually add a lever. Right, this right now has the right item in the middle and all the items on the sides for 1, but these 2 nether stars belong to the second craft, and it's causing it to get jammed up. So if I just do this and set these to active without signal, I should be able to take these out without it putting new items in. And then, where'd the emerald crystal go? Oh, I got put in here. That's fine. Alright, so as these craft, these are our Wyvern Cores. I think the next thing we want to do is upgrade our fusion injectors from this basic tier to the next tier, which I believe is Wyvern tier. So Wyvern tier fusion injectors are pretty easy to make once you have the basics and the Wyvern Cores. The reason we have to upgrade them is if you look at these fusion crafting recipes, each of them has a tier, and in order to do this recipe, the lowest tier fusion injector in your system must be at least this tier. So if we want to make, say, Awaken Cores, we need Wyvern tier fusion injectors. So let me go ahead and get us a spare set of 10 basic tier fusion injectors, and then we can start upgrading them into Wyvern tier. Why is this not extracting? Oh no, it did extract. That was just the next item. Okay. Alright, so let me get us another 10 basic fusion crafting injectors. And I'm back. So we have the recipe for Wyvern fusion crafting injectors. We put it in the interface. And remember, we have to add to the white list and the black list the item that goes in the middle. So here we add that. This ensures, again, that the center item doesn't accidentally get stuffed in one of the sides. So we should be able to request 10 of these. Oh, no, we can't. What did I do wrong? I don't have enough compressed with that, and I don't have draconium blocks. Well, one of those is easy to fix. A block of draconium is just... And what's up with our lava crystals? You know what? I think oh no, it's crafting. It's just... Right now, all my lava is coming from the pump in the nether, and it's not particularly fast. You know what? How about I'll take this time to set up a faster lava generation system. So if we look at lava, we can either generate it with the Actual Additions Lava Factory, which uses RF to do it. And I actually don't know the ratio of RF to lava when generated in there. It's not in JEI. But we can also melt magma blocks very cheaply for lava. And magma blocks come very cheaply from Blaze Deep Mob Learning. So let me set up one of our loot fabricators to make magma blocks, and we can melt some of that to make our magma for this fast, or make lava for this faster. Alright, it sped up our lava generation a lot. Using Slime Deep Mob Learning, I'm creating magma blocks, which I'm melting into lava, storing in a tank, and I have a fluid export bus sending it into this chemical reactor and wherever else we might need it. And now our infused lava crystals are being produced very quickly. And once we have 1,000 of them, I'm turning off the machine. Cool, huh? So now let's see if we can request those fusion injectors. Looks like we can. Off they go. So I believe already whitelisted the items. Alright, so these will just craft. They take a little bit of time, but let's watch the first one just to make sure it works. I have to say the animations that go into the Draconic Evolution stuff are on point. Super cool. And the audio effects too, pretty good. Alright, there's number one, and here comes number two. Oh, now it's making a Wyvern Core. Anyways, it looks like it's working. So I'll come back when we have our 10 fusion injectors crafted up. Alright, the 10th of our Wyvern tier fusion crafting injectors has just finished. So let's swap these out. Should be just as simple as breaking these and putting the new ones on. Now, when you put the new ones on, you do need to remember that when you first place them, they are not in single item mode, so you'll want to activate that. And you probably want to place them facing the right way. So place them, activate single item mode on all of these. And then the next thing I want to do is upgrade these once again to Draconic tier. So I already put the recipe in, and I think we should have all the materials. No, not quite. We need a little bit more europium. Why is that? What does it need europium for? We want to craft 10? Oh, because I didn't put these back. So the 10 that we just took down, we can now upgrade. They'll have to upgrade into Wyvern tier and then into Draconic tier. And this process will take it, probably a good half hour. So how about I'll start this up and then we can just end today's episode here. And tomorrow when we come back, we'll hopefully have all 10 Awakened or Draconic tier fusion injectors ready. We won't quite be able to make Awakened Draconium yet, but it'll be the last piece of technology we need, I believe, before we can make our tier 7 microminers. Because some of these things have to be made in Draconic tier fusion crafters. And the advanced dislocator from Draconic Evolution, probably my favorite form of teleportation in the game. Alright, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned a bit about at least my preferred way of automating both the Empower and the fusion crafting. I know a lot of people are intimidated by how you how you automate this thing, especially without using tools like XNet. And while XNet makes this very simple, I really think that the solution I'm using here is even simpler than using XNet, and it's more extensible because you don't have to program every recipe in manually. So, let me know in the comments if you have a good guess what this fandom face is for. I'm curious if anyone will get it. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.